another feature in the lasso tool, and we'll see this pop up several times. This is called there's a magnet associated with the tool. So this is called a magnetic lasso tool. Works a little bit differently depending on how the settings are placed up here. And I can change the frequency to a higher number, change the contrast. The selection will kind of try to find edges as you drag. So it's going to try to adhere to that edge. See that? It does a pretty good job of it. I was going to try to go all the way around this. But it doesn't do a perfect job. That's the point I'll need to make. It does a pretty good, fast job, but it does not do a perfect job. So, from the most part, this looks good, but I run the risk of messing up as I'm doing it. So that's what you have to be careful with when using anything that's magnetic um, in Photoshop. And those tools are relatively new to make it easier on people who don't really want to learn the trickier ways to do things. And there's a lot of that type of stuff built into this program and into others. So magnetic. Next tool, selection method, is called the magic wand. I'm going to close this dune and open up the duck image just to show you how this works. Magic wand is a tool that makes selections of areas based upon color. And it depends on where you click. So in this case, if I click this magic wand on the white in the background, the tool is going to look for all the white pixels and select all of those. So look what it did. It selected the entire background. It stopped when it hit the edge of the duck. And that's easy when you have something like a white or a solid. But if you click in something like this, like in the yellow part of his head, see what it did? It looked for more pixels like that yellow pixel until it came to something noticeably different like the white, and it stopped. And how far it reaches when you click is entirely dependent upon something up here at the top called tolerance. See along these options here for this tool, remember these options across here change depending on which tool I click. So if I'm on the magic wand, there's something called tolerance. The lower the number, I'm going to put something real small like 5. Watch when I click there, it just selected a small little batch of pixels. I'll bump it up to 20. It's going to reach a little farther. I change it to 50. It's going to go even farther. And you can push it too far. If I put that on 200, it might leave the yellow. No, it did. It did pretty good. It went all the way around the edge pretty good. If there was any yellow of that white background at all, if that number got too high, the selected edge would just leave the duck and go on into the background too. All of these selection tools work just like a lot of other programs. If you click on something and you hold your shift key down and continue to click, it'll continue adding to that selected area. Same thing works with like the marquee tool, the first one. If I drew a box and held my shift key down and drew another box, it keeps adding to that selection. This is called adding to a selection. I can switch to the lasso tool at the same time. As long as I'm holding my shift key down, it lets me add more to my selection. See how the selection is growing depending on what I've selected? And if you want to subtract from your selection, you hold the Option button down. Notice a little minus sign popped up next to my lasso. I can subtract that corner out, subtract this section out. And that works with any tool. If I'm on the marquee tool, I hold the Option button down. It'll subtract that stuff out of the selection, subtracting those parts. So it's a good thing to know how to do, adding to and subtracting from a selection. And then our basic magic wand makes selections of areas based upon color. And oftentimes these get used in conjunction with one another. So if I wanted to select that bill, grab my magic wand, click on the red bill. Notice it selected a lot of it. I want to zoom in so you can see what's missing. But it left these little floating sections that are not selected. So I could stay on my magic wand, hold the shift key, and try to grab more parts of it like I did right there. And that works pretty good until you get to these little bitty areas that are kind of hard to grab, like down here along the highlights on the bill. So in that case, I could switch back to my lasso tool, hold my shift button down, and draw a loop around those little pixels to include those into the selection. I could draw a little loop here around this edge to include that into the selection. So you need to get used to using the selection tools together. They don't operate in a vacuum. They don't work independently. They're not designed to work by themselves. They're really designed to work in conjunction with one another. I could use the magic wand to select that, hold the shift key down and get some more, but see, it leaves parts. Holding my shift key did pretty good on that. But there's a little bit missing along the bottom edge down here. So you have to pay attention to what you're doing. And here in this case, if I wanted to get the duck and bill chosen too, I switch to my lasso, hold the shift key down, draw an edge around that bill pretty carefully, and that'll add that to the selection. Draw a loop around that eye. That adds that to the selection. So this is using these selection tools together, and then the magic wand based upon tolerance, and makes selections based on color, depending on how high that tolerance is or how low you set it. That'll determine how far it reaches when you click.